No matter what laws you're charged with breaking, no matter who you're accused of hurting, no matter what damage you're suspected of causing, the U.S. Constitution has got your back, guaranteeing an attorney to defend you, free of charge if you can't afford one. The 1963 Supreme Court case that guaranteed our right to an attorney considered just about everything when it comes to a fair trial, regardless of your social and/or economic status. But what our public defender system has never considered is how to pay for it. And that has been one of the greatest challenges facing the state of Oregon and even Deschutes County for the last 60 years. Wait. The docket at the Deschutes County Courthouse has never had trouble filling up, with everything from cases of domestic violence, petty theft, burglary, and even assault and murder.
Please rise. Circuit Court for Deschutes County is now in session. Thank you. Good afternoon. Please be seated.
Joel Wirtz has seen it all in his 20 years here. He runs the nonprofit Deschutes Defenders, an office of 19 attorneys who step up when those accused of a crime can't afford a $500 an hour attorney.
No objection, Your Honor.
And that includes most of those who end up in these courtrooms. It's an expensive and, from time to time, an overwhelming responsibility, even today.
So, wait, okay, but 1963 to 2024,
right?
We are still having growing pains?
Yes, because, ultimately we're trying to figure out how do we do this, economically as possible. What are the standards? You just put them there, and then how do we pay for it?
How do we pay for it? It's a question that is asked every year by every county in the state. The fact is, it's your tax dollars paying for it. It's the cost of honoring your constitutional right to an attorney.
It is dire when you're talking about not being able to perform a constitutional mandate. That is grim.
Circuit Court for Deschutes County is now in session.
And Deschutes County has reached that grim moment a few times over the past few decades, the latest over the last 2 years. Deschutes County's presiding judge, Wells B. Ashby, has watched case after case, month after month, defendant after defendant, enter his and other judges' courtrooms with no attorneys available to represent them, forced to delay these cases for the defendant and the victims for weeks and even months.
February 14th is not available. We have
Last year in Deschutes County, that lack of representation impacted an average of 200 cases a month. In Jackson County, 800 cases a month. Multnomah County, more than 1,000.
Criminal cases don't age well for anyone, right? It causes stress for defendants. It causes stress for victims. People need more certainty that, am I going to prison? Am I going to be found not guilty? Am I going to be able to resolve this on reasonable terms for everyone?
The victims also want these cases resolved on reasonable terms. So imagine for a moment you are a victim. The case has sat for months and months unresolved. The defendant is back out on the street. Evidence in the case is evaporating every day. And your sleepless nights continue. This is not at all what the U.S. Constitution guarantees.
We are ready for an entry of plea.
Delay too long and the courts are forced to dismiss the case altogether. So how did we get here? Prosecutors in Deschutes County blame the state and now a 3-year-old metric used to decide just how many cases any one public defender can handle at one time, called the Maximum Attorney Caseload, or MAC model. Put simply, MAC cut the number of cases any public defender could take on by dozens a year. And with fewer and fewer public defenders entering the system, the backlog only widened. Before MAC, these same attorneys could take on as many cases as they felt they could handle at an average of $300 a pop. The state saw a big problem with that.
And so that created a financial incentive for lawyers to take too many cases because the fee that they earned on each case was too low, and to underrepresent their clients.
That's Jessica Camphy. She's the head of the Oregon Public Defense Commission. She told me that with the old system, there was very little, if any, incentive for public defenders to truly seek justice for their clients, to ever even go to trial. Instead, just convince the client to plead guilty, whether they are or not. That clears their caseload, allows them to take on more cases, and in turn, more of those $300 checks.
state's recommendation is.
That is not how Deschutes County District Attorney Stephen Gunnels sees it.
My experience isn't that public defenders take on more cases to get more money. They take on the cases that they can handle because it's their duty to take on indigent defense cases.
The American Bar Association saw it differently back in 2022. In its analysis called The Oregon Project, it deemed Oregon's public defense system as unethical at best, unconstitutional at worst, and found that Oregon had only 47% of the public defenders it needed to effectively assist indigent clients, leaving tens of thousands waiting weeks or even months for a lawyer, their cases growing weaker by the day. To fix it, according to the bar, Oregon would need to hire nearly 1,300 new attorneys to manage its client caseload. And to give defendants their right to fair representation, all public defenders would need to be limited in the number of cases they could be given, so each defendant could get the proper attention from their lawyer.
We really revealed the scope of the public defense shortage in Oregon. And so once we started controlling for those caseloads, we saw that we really didn't have enough public defenders to meet the need. And that's where you start seeing folks in Oregon who are qualified for a public defender that don't have access to representation.
When we talk about eliminating the deficit of public defenders in Deschutes County or any other county in the state of Oregon, we're talking about a lot more than just the hiring of hundreds of lawyers. We're talking about all their support staff, paralegals, social workers, executive assistants, and the list goes on and on. In fact, according to a 6-year plan by the Oregon Public Defense Commission, to do that would require a doubling of their budget by the state legislature to more than $1 billion a year. It's highly unlikely the state legislature will acquiesce to that kind of figure. Politically, it's a tough sell to spend $1 billion defending those who commit crimes against the rest of us. In the meantime, cooperation between judges, prosecutors, and defense attorneys here in Deschutes County has reduced the number of defendants left unrepresented, but it's still dozens every month. And yet the idea of dropping $1 billion into public defense sounds ludicrous to senior defenders like Joel Wirtz.
I'm all about, instead of spending more money on public defense, we put it more into drug treatment, like front load the drug treatment, front load housing for mental illness, and housing could be more all the way from a hospital all the way to a halfway house, those kind of things that we talked about in the 1980s and we still haven't funded in 2024.
While Wirtz may have seen it all in his 20 years here, what he hasn't seen yet is enough focus on keeping the citizens of Deschutes County from becoming defendants in Deschutes County. Funding social services, he insists, is the key.
Is another public defender the best way to use the resources? No, I'm advocating I don't need to have a bigger office. I need the legislature and the governor and for judges, and they've seen the same thing. This is where you need to put the money.
Our current public defender crisis raises an even bigger concern for Judge Ashby.
You know, crowded dockets and too many cases and not enough time is a great problem. I worry about the day when nobody shows up for court because they've lost trust and confidence in the system to perform that core function.
Your Miranda rights lay it out very clearly. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. We've all heard that 1,000 times. And for thousands of people here in Deschutes County each year, hearing that offers great relief, but not necessarily a guarantee. I'm David Clue, Central Oregon Daily News.